The Research and Development Department in NHS Lanarkshire is similar to the similar departments in other health boards in Scotland. The main role, although it does a lot of different things, the main role really is to provide better access to research studies for our patients. Through research studies, our patients are able to access new or cutting edge treatments that they wouldn't otherwise be able to access out of the contexts of research. So that's a very important thing in terms of improving the quality of care that patients can access. And indeed, in some specialties like haematology, the majority of patients can only access the best care in the context of clinical trials. So it's a very important aspect of the offering of care that we have for the patients in Lanarkshire. There are a lot of research networks set up that we liaise with. Through collaborating with the universities, we're trying always to increase the amount of research that we're doing in collaboration with them. We also reach out on a more national basis to other research organisations and universities around about the UK. Scotland as a country has a very well coordinated research infrastructure. All of the boards cooperate very well with each other and with the Chief Scientist's Office. Across the UK, in fact, there was a very good response to the research response to the coronavirus pandemic. One of the first things that we did was try to mobilise as much of the research infrastructure as we possibly could to target specifically looking for treatments, therapies that would perhaps help people who had been infected with the virus. One of the things in Lanarkshire that is perhaps not the same everywhere, I know it's like this in some other organisations, but not necessarily across them all, is that we have a single R&D department. The trials nurses are part of the same department as I am in. We have trials pharmacy people who are part of the R&D department. So we are really one big team. It's quite a big health board, but it's quite a close-knit and well-integrated research team. Our research nurses are an excellent team. The majority of the research nurse team, those that weren't involved and still continuing with the crucial clinical trials that we had that were treating patients, were then focused on taking on some of the big national clinical trials that were running targeting COVID. So we became very quickly involved in the biggest clinical trial, the biggest COVID clinical trial in the world, which is the Oxford-led recovery trial. We recruited very successfully to that, and we became involved in a few other important, nationally important and globally important coronavirus research studies and clinical trials.
I've been a nurse in 2006, so I worked kind of in medical wards and stuff. And in the wards, you didn't always get the learning experience that you were always really busy, and it was all kind of time management and stuff. And although they did kind of diabetes research and stuff in the wards that I was in, it was just something that I wanted to expand on so that I would be able to learn more. I enjoy meeting people, so the biggest thing for me is you're able to speak to people.
For the previous 3 years, I was working in a respiratory ward as a staff nurse, and I saw firsthand the kind of devastation that COVID was having on patients and families and so on, and it was really heartbreaking to see, and I just really wanted to do something to kind of get ahead of this and do something that, you know, could make a difference before it starts impacting people.
What specifically about research nursing appealed to you?
I think really the whole variety of it. Obviously at the minute we're focused on COVID, but now the other studies are starting to open up, and there's just so many things you could be doing. So one day you could be looking at a replacement to the PCR test, the next day you could be looking at different ways of detecting heart disease and related conditions. So it's constantly changing and evolving, and it just keeps it interesting.
Where do you see the future of research nursing?
I think COVID obviously has been devastating for everybody. It's had a large impact in the NHS and stuff, but I think some positives come out of it, that it has made people more aware about research. I was actually helping with the vaccine clinics as well, and obviously they were asking the question, would you like to be contacted in research? And a lot of people were saying yes.
One of the things that came out of the RCN conference last week was how much the research nurses felt they'd been able to improve their relationships with wards and so on, becoming more embedded in wards and having a wider appreciation of what we do as research nurses. So I think that's the way forward, to kind of build on those relationships and make research not something that's specialised and away from everything else, but something that's seen as part of the whole spectrum of nursing.
The Siren Studies, a UK-wide study looking at immune response in healthcare workers to SARS-CoV-2 infection. The main aim is to investigate whether antibodies provide a protective effect for subsequent infection. Scotland, England, Northern Ireland and Wales are all participating. We've recently finished recruiting in Siren, and there's now over 44,000 participants throughout the UK. NHS Lanarkshire were actually ended up the third highest recruiters throughout the whole of the United Kingdom, which was an enormous effort considering they started a wee bit later in terms of recruitment, and we've got over 1,000 participants from NHS Lanarkshire alone taking part in Siren. Scotland's providing 14% of the total Siren participants, and we've over 6,000 healthcare workers taking part. There was a real huge effort within Scotland to recruit our participants, and we're delighted to have a couple of the nurses that were involved in the recruitment process here with us today. Karen, you played a really important role in Siren in Lanarkshire. Can you tell us a wee bit about what specifically you did during the study?
Okay, so as a coordinator of the study, my role was to facilitate the set-up of the study and to help with the PI to ensure that all processes were in place and that all staff had met the study requirements for training as well. I would also say that I am the principal contact between the Public Health England and the study monitors, so any issues going forward of that, then they liaise with me and I try my best to sort it out as well. In the end, we ended up, because of the volume of interest from staff and we wanted to accommodate them, and we ended up having to put all members of our research team on Siren study and just to see all these participants. So it was just, we just threw everything at it. We were busy days, staff managed, and we managed to accommodate nearly all participants that were interested in taking part.
So Maureen, can you tell us a wee bit about your role in the Siren study?
So part of my role was mostly administration. So I was developing spreadsheets, I was making up appointment calendars, I was locating all the results for the participants that we had, and we were manually sending them out by email. So initially this started off that there was just myself and a colleague, and we were maybe doing it for half a day each, but quite quickly we realised that this had, grown arms and legs, and it was great because so many people wanted appointments, and we had actually 4 people working on the appointment making at one point. Everyone would just see when they got an appointment, especially at the end, Sally, they were so excited. It was like they had actually won a watch. So it was great because we'd obviously were running out of appointments. We had more people than we actually could recruit because of our end date, the 31st of March. So when they got, they're like, oh my goodness, that's great, I can't, So also, I thought, see when they realised that this is 12 months, which they did because we'd obviously spoken to them about that, and then the 2 weekly PCRs. So they were getting to know their COVID status every 2 weeks.
Being organised was probably one of the most important parts of the study, because if you weren't organised, you kind of failed straight away. As I said, the visits were very simple and straightforward, but it was just in terms of making sure that we had all the stock that we required, So with outsourcing stock for that, looking at accommodation, looking at ensuring that staff were familiar with the study and could carry out the visits as well. I think initially we were quite naive in how much stock we would need. We went from ordering in the hundreds to then ordering in the thousands, and to the point that NHS couldn't even supply it anymore, so we had to outsource things like the siren labels that help labs identify the siren samples. We then in the end up had to order 110,000 labels, so it was massive. So, and again, just having places to store all this equipment as well, so it was just humongous. We are just constantly adapting our processes and changing just to meet the demands and how we work. And now that recruitment has ended, we've got a wee bit more time just to kind of step back and look and see how we can do things better. Whereas initially it was just recruit, and that we couldn't even lift our heads up. It was constantly from that.
So Maureen, you and I have been in contact quite regularly because you've been identifying some issues in the administration of the project. And just to flag things up to us in terms of the protocol, make sure that everything's going correctly, but also inform us of progress within Lanarkshire. So that's been a big part of it, and I do think people think studies like this, it sounds relatively simple, like fortnightly visits and monthly bloods, but actually there's such an enormous administrative role in the back.
Every day it was something new, but it's been very, very enjoyable, and it has been, the participants are just been so happy to take part. It's been a joy. It was very, very busy. Karen, I was in communication with every day, I think maybe 10 times a day, just till we ironed out various issues that we had. But it was a role that certainly developed, but mostly administrative, mostly dealing with spreadsheets, mostly dealing with blood results, and being the person that the participants contacted, as well as myself having to contact you, Sally, when we needed a bit more information.
Absolutely, and I think again having the well coordinated administration for the clinical teams who are so busy at this time as well is a huge thing, and encouraging them to continue taking part. So it's not to be underestimated, the coordination of visits and things like that. So Maureen, you've mentioned quite a lot of contact with participants. What do you think participants have got out of taking part in Siren?
I think they've just been really happy to think that they can contribute. I mean, we've all had this year of, they've been working in the wards, they've seen the horrible effects of COVID, and now they're all thinking, there's actually something that we could do. So there's that kind of altruistic part where they want to do something good and they know that it's contributing to give us a better picture. Overall, people just want to make a contribution and are just so happy to be taking part in the trial. It was really good for us all because it was a real, boost, and we were all working hard, we were working long hours. The girls on the ground they were extending their hours, they were starting earlier to accommodate people, they were working later. Some people were fitting in colleagues in their lunch breaks. So it was just that feeling that everybody was trying to get the best out of it, and we're just really happy with the way that everything is going.
Every single test is a contribution to the body of knowledge to help manage the pandemic in future. So,
and I think we consciously as a team, when we have contact now, we're thanking people for participating, because as the time goes on, it is 12 months is a long time to keep people engaged, but we're constantly saying thanks very much, because this is a very important study. We appreciate your contribution, and hopefully that is keeping people motivated to come back, because obviously we want to retain as many as we can.
And I think that's really where your role is so important to the study in general, because it's really personal relationships. It's making people feel comfortable, welcome, part of that group. So we're so appreciative of the work that you guys all have done for us.
We've been trying to make it quite simple for participants. So as I say, we've got this other data system called Salus that we use, and that electronically sends out the results. So I think people are quite engaged with that they are getting a very, very quick result. You can actually feel as if you get to know people a lot better than you did before from all over.
And it really has been a whole health forward.
As you say, it has been kind of, all the nurses, it's been kind of like a family, because you're more or less speaking to them all day, whereas normally you would just be you know, in your own area, but now we've all had to communicate. I think it's been a great thing for us, definitely, and all participants.
I would urge other boards to try to look at other health organisations, rather to try to take advantage of the integration that will doubtless have improved in everybody's organisation during this by necessity, because if anything, in terms of research, this pandemic has shown how important it is. Without the clinical trials that have been carried out in neighbouring boards, for instance, the vaccination trials, that has really highlighted the importance of research. We really don't want to, as a research community, lose that profile. So hopefully we will come out of the pandemic, and hopefully research more generally will benefit from some of the advances that we've saw in processes and integration.